If your planter box falls apart after 2 seasons, it's not the weather, it's the design. Today we're going to be building the ultimate planter box. Overbuilt, rot resistant, and made to last for years. Not one of these Cedar picket planter boxes, but this one's going to be the real deal. In order to make this planter box, I bought some rough cut cedar from a local sawmill that I found. So follow along with me as I cut this down to size, mill it, and show you how to get a square board as best as we can without owning a joiner. First step is to cut the boards to a rough length. I'm not aiming for a final length here, just getting within a few inches. This is going to make it much easier to handle when we get to the table saw. So when I cut these boards to length, I used the wood that was less desirable to be my scrap piece so that I don't have to deal with this when I'm building the planters. With all the sawdust flying around, I decided it's probably not a good idea for me to be breathing this stuff in, so I decided to go grab my mask. To joint these boards, I'm going to use my 6-foot level and keep it square to my table saw fence. It's important that when you're going to joint this board on the table saw, you're not really joining it, but you're at least getting one square edge as best as you can. But what you want to do is the edge that you want to discard is the edge that you keep against the level when you're squaring it, so that when you come back for your final rip cut to rip it to length, it'll be the correct length, and this ugly piece of the board here becomes all fall scrap. Ideally, you would want the board that you're cutting to be shorter than your level, but I don't really have that luxury here. Still, using this level is going to give me a much better result than if I had only used the table saw fence. Lucky for me, the level is going to work perfectly when cutting the smaller pieces of this box. Also, did I mention that ripping the long boards were a pain? So we're joining our first board here, and we've already ran into our first issue. My table saw sits much higher than my workbench does. So as I get towards the end of the board, it wants to kick up like this. So I don't have a good way to continue pushing it through the table saw safely. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back with my jigsaw, cut this piece off, and flip the board over and run it back through again. It's not perfect, but it's the best I can do. Now that we have the side pieces roughly cut to length and square, we're going to work on the shorter end pieces. These pieces are only 30 inches long, so they're going to be a lot easier to manage when we're over there at the table saw. With that in mind, I'll mark off my rough cut length, being sure to discard the less than desirable end of the board, and rinse and repeat the process. Now that we have everything rough cut to length and a square side, it's time to set the table saw up and rip these down to the correct width. I like to do this all at one time so that even if I'm off just slightly on my dimensions, everything's going to be off the same amount, so everything will be cut identical. Finally, it's time to mill these boards to the proper thickness. The original plan called for the boards to be 1 inch thick, but a lot of the boards that came from the sawmill were less than 1 inch thick. So what I'm gonna have to do is mill these boards to 7/8 of an inch. Luckily, taking about 1/8 of an inch off the boards is not gonna affect the strength of the final product. I'm gonna start by setting a planer to 1 inch thick. Some of the boards are slightly over 1 inch, but I wanna be real methodical about how I take the material off. So I'm gonna crank this up to past 1 inch and set my hard stop over here to 1 inch and then come back down until we stop. I'm gonna start at 1 inch and then I'm gonna work my way slowly down to 7/8 of an inch. Once I get the planer set, I'm gonna run all the boards through at the same height, even if they don't need it, just so that I don't lose track of where I'm at. And every time I adjust, I'll run all the boards through again so that I keep everything the same thickness. When using the planer, make sure to flip your boards over to plane both sides of the wood. This will give you the cleanest look and the cleanest results. After planing the wood and about 30 gallons of sawdust later, it's time to cut these boards to their final length. I like to wait to cut them to length now as opposed to in the beginning, just in case I get any tear out on the planer, but to each their own. Now that everything has been cut, I've arranged the boards in a way that I think looks the best, and I plan to have the worst part of the board facing the inside of the box so that you can't see it, and the worst boards at the bottom of the box, or I'm gonna place them on the back of the box so that you won't be able to see that part either. Now that everything is assembled the way that I like it, it is finally time to start assembling these things. I'm gonna use pocket hole joinery in all 4 sides of the box to make the walls. That's gonna be plenty strong enough for our application, but just in case it's not, I'm gonna go ahead and reinforce this after it's built. The nice thing about pocket holes is that they're a cheap and easy way to join boards together. Here, I'm drilling the holes in the inside of the box so they won't be visible from the outside or when it's filled with dirt. All right, it's a new day and I have all of my pocket holes milled. And I'm gonna lay the boards out exactly how I had set previously and assemble them with my pocket hole screws. I'm using these pocket hole screws. These are 1¼ inch pocket hole screws. And I know that says indoor use only, but I have a ton of these and I don't have any that are outdoor rated, but it'll be fine. I start by squaring one side up and joining it before hopping over to the opposite side of the board. You may say that my pocket holes aren't perfectly aligned, but that's gonna be okay. I just got a little lazy when I was drilling them, but they're still gonna hold just as well as if they were perfectly aligned. And with the walls assembled, it's now time to work on the corner brackets that are gonna hold this box together. So back to the miter saw, table saw, planer, and you guessed it, miter saw again. Now that the corner supports are finally cut, I'm going to use these Wen clamps to make sure I get a consistent right angle so then I can assemble the corner pieces. I'm pre-drilling my holes here so that I don't split the wood. I'll be using number 8 by 1.5" cabinet screws to join the corner brackets and also to assemble them to the walls. Now that the long walls are complete, it's time to finally assemble this thing and have something that resembles a planter box. I have totally made my fair share of mistakes and uh-ohs during this project. Truthfully, most of my learning happens from the mistakes that I do make. Anyways, I wisened up here and used my corner clamps to assemble. Well, we finally got everything assembled and we have a fully functioning planter box. It took us long enough, but I think it looks good. We could choose to stop here if we wanted to, but I'm gonna take it a step further and add some decorative trim and some extra supports because the wife, she likes nice things. So I decided to save you guys the trouble of watching me mill and cut these boards all over again. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna secure the top boards here, this runner, with the same cabinet screws that I've been using, those number 8 1.25" cabinet screws. Then I'm gonna run a vertical piece down the center of all 4 sides for extra support. And then that will be a wrap. Okay folks, we're on our 3rd and final day of building and the Sawdust Queen decided that she not only wants 1, but she wants 2 of these bad boys. So now that we've got these finished, it's time to apply our finishing coat. I'm gonna be using this cutting board oil. I've never used it before. Normally you would do something like a deck stain for this to keep it from discoloring, but since we're gonna be planting stuff that we're gonna eat in here, we're trying to go as natural and as safe as possible. Usually I would have used an all-natural tung oil, but I was on a tight time crunch to get these done and Lowe's didn't have any readily available, so I ended up settling for this cutting board oil instead. Okay, here we are a few hours later. I've applied a very generous coat of this cutting board oil. Let's go take a look at the final product. All right guys, that wraps up this build. I have easily modifiable plans down in the description below. This box can be built out of 3/4 inch cedar picket or even 5/8. I just choose to way overbuild things. Remember, if you learned anything or if you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon at the bottom. That would mean a ton to me. Thanks for watching.